Welcome back to the Circle of Drift podcast. Thanks again to every last one of you that stops in every single week for a brand new episode. And to all of you, I am so sorry. I have been gone for the past 2 weeks. I decided to take a little bit of a break, which we'll get into the reasons why and a whole bunch of other stuff in this solo episode. And yeah, I said solo. There's not going to be a single guest in this episode. So it's the first time trying this out. And I'm sorry if it's kind of like odd and off the rails a little bit because I kind of just talk and talk and talk. But I did it kind of in a Q&A style. So we got some feedback from you guys. If you missed the story post where I asked for some questions, obviously you can go ahead and leave those in the comments, or you could just shoot me a DM. I'm sure I'll make another post on Instagram. So make sure you're following along there. But I'm genuinely curious what you guys think of this episode and if we should maybe continue it going forward. I know this one's on an actual upload day, but maybe these could be like just a bonus episode every month or however we decide to do it. Like, give me your feedback in the comments, or just feel free to tell me it's completely dumb and I should never do it again. Just keep interviewing people. But along with that, we got some major changes coming to the website. So if you haven't been on there in a while, feel free to go check it out and see what all merch and stuff we have. I do have some new stuff on the way, but I will not be throwing all of that on the website. You will have to catch that firsthand at the first event and grab it there. It's so hard to believe that it's been 3 years of doing the podcast, and I seriously cannot thank all of you enough for all the support. You guys have been amazing, and I cannot wait for all that this year has to come, because I have a lot of things that I have planned, a lot of things that I want to achieve, and I'm going to bring you guys along the way. So let's just go ahead, get into this episode, and see what you guys think. The first ever Circle of Drift solo podcast. I know I have been gone a couple of weeks and not posted any episodes, and there's for a good reason. I've been doing this for about 3 years, a little over 3 years now, and I don't ever really take a break. And last year I kind of did way more than I ever expected for one, and way more than I had planned for two. And it costed a lot. It was very stressful. It was a lot of heartaches, a lot of just ups and downs that you go through, just normal ups and downs you go through, especially trying to get your foot in the door of doing the whole vendor thing. And nobody, of course, does the episodes at the track or any type of podcast at the track, really. So that is a whole new endeavor that took a lot of sorting out, we'll say, to make happen. So there's a lot of that stuff that I kind of want to go into. And I know a lot of you guys have probably the main question in mind as to where a certain piece of content went that is no longer available to watch. I got to choose my words carefully, but we'll get into all that stuff too, as much as I can say. There's some things that I can't, but I'm going to do my best. But one thing I did want to say before we get into all of this is just after this year, in this past 2 weeks where I really took some time to just relax, not do any work, and almost take a like staycation, if you want to call it that. And it was really needed. Like I really needed the time to just let my brain relax for one, and for two, really soak in everything that I did this year, because I did a lot more than I expected, and I did a lot more than what was really called for, if that makes any sense too. I don't know. But it was amazing, and I needed some time to really soak it in because I achieved countless goals that I've had set for years and years and years, all just in last year. And I never really took the time to actually sit back and enjoy them when they were happening. So being able to reflect on it was kind of eye-opening and really brought some clarity to a lot of what this is all about, I guess. Anyway, we'll get into a lot of that stuff towards the end, along with the reasoning to the missing content. But for now, I do want to kind of jump into a Q&A style thing. Yeah, I made a post or sorry, I made a story post not too long ago while I was working on my car and stuff, and said that I was going to be doing a solo episode. Reached out to you guys, asked if you had any questions or anything that you had been wanting to ask, because I know I don't really ever give any spotlight to myself on my own channel. I spend a lot of time making sure the guest has a spotlight and the guest looks good, and everything's kind of packaged around the guest. So a lot of times you guys don't get to see a lot of me, you don't get to hear a lot of me, which I know that's not why you're there, but I feel it's important to know the person behind the questions, if that makes any sense too. So you guys came up with some rather phenomenal questions. I'm only going to do a handful of them just so that this doesn't take forever. And me, myself, I could talk for hours to a pole, it seems, when I'm just not in front of a crowd. Um, but there's also some questions that I got from my buddy Jay Glasgow as well. He's been on the podcast a couple times. You guys have seen him. And he gets a lot of the insider information, if you want to call it that. I bounce a lot of ideas off of him, and I kind of reach out to him for a lot of different things that go through my head that have to do with Circle of Drift. He really loves the podcast and he really supports it. And one of the very, very few people that have actually helped me with the RB swap and just that car in general. So, yeah, he's been the one tuning the car and all sorts of stuff. So, I got some questions off of him because I knew he would be very good at it and he would have some really intellectual questions. So, we got quite a few good ones from him. We'll jump through all of these and then we'll kind of go into some stuff that, you know, updates and like stuff that I just kind of want to talk about, stuff that I've realized, stuff I've learned, and some rather unsettling stuff I've noticed on how the industry works and a lot of other stuff like that. So I think we'll just kind of jump right into it. I do want to say I'm sorry if I butcher any of you guys' name. I don't mean to, but some of y'all got some weird Instagram names. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and start this off. We have Mr. Oh no, I'm already gonna butcher it. Sinanaj. Mr. underscore Sinanaj. I really hope I said that right. If you couldn't use the typical well-known drift chassis, what kind of drift car would you build? Huh. Okay. So for anyone that doesn't know, I do drive a 350Z, but it is RB25 swapped. It was originally VQ. And I do have a G35 sedan as of recently that is driftable. It's got, FDF mild mantis kit up front, FDF rear arms, handbrake. I got a pull up handbrake like mounted in the console from Synergy Race Development. They make a pull-up handbrake that's just a pole, so I can put my BMX grips on it. I used to ride BMX very occasionally, not a crazy BMX rider or anything like that, but I really loved ODI grips, and the first handbrake I ever had, I had an ODI grip on it, and I loved it. Anyways, I'm blabbing about my own cars. So what chassis would I choose besides the most well-known chassis? I assume he's talking about the 350Z because most people buy those. They're abundant and they don't look the best to me. I know I have one and I put a lot of work into mine. Anyways, I'm not sorry. I'm going down a rabbit hole that I don't need to be going down. Best chassis I would choose. This is tough because I would used to say a Miata because you could get them fairly cheap. They had a very short, snappy wheelbase, so it was good to I think it's good to learn on something like that is a little bit snappier, so that whenever you go to a car that is a little bit more floaty, you kind of predict it more, and I feel like it makes that type of car easier to drive. That probably doesn't matter either, but it would probably be a Miata until now because they've grown so much in price. People are using them a lot more specifically for drifting and definitely for road racing, time attack, wheel to wheel, stuff like that. So Miata's kind of out of the question. I think probably your next best option is going to be E36, E46. They're so freaking cheap nowadays. I mean, I think I found a manual that had, I mean, it was fairly high miles, kind of like rough, ugly, mismatched body panel type car, but it ran. Maybe needed a couple sensors or something like that. You can get them for a couple grand, you know, a couple extra grand to work and or maybe a few extra grand to work to get them to be really driftable, and you got a good drift car. They don't make quite as much power and torque and all that stuff as a Z, but I think they're phenomenal cars and arguably hmm I don't know if I want to say that. I was going to say arguably better to learn on because they are lower horsepower. It's almost like bringing it back to the roots of the whole KA NASR type drift car with very low horsepower. You're all momentum drifting, and yeah, I rather than a chassis being the specific thing you focus on and wanting something that's just easy. Yeah, sure, that's obviously very important, but I think finding the chassis you want would be arguably more important. For example, like the Z, I love the Z for how well it drives, but I personally don't love the look of it as much, and it makes me not want to work on it as much as well. Now, I've done a lot of work to it to make it kind of look better and not look like a just straight up computer mouse, which is hard to get around with a 350Z or any Z really, but you do what you can. And personally, I would rather have the RB swap in the G35 sedan, just because I like four doors, and I think it would be cooler. So I don't know. It's a give and take. I personally would choose the chassis that you feel resonates with you best, rather than what everyone says is the best to learn on. You can go learn on a sim and do it that way. You don't have to have a good cheater car to learn how to drift. If you want to drift, you know, a Fox body Mustang, go do that. Or if you want to drift a Corvette, go do that. If you want to drift, if you want to be a weirdo and try and drift a freaking Saturn or something, like the Drift Games have now. Dave from Drift Games has one to kind of correlate to his Supra, which is very odd correlation. Anyways, so yeah, I would choose a chassis that resonates with you more than just what everyone else says. So we'll move on from that question and go to the next. And two questions in a row about the episode. We'll get to that again at the end. This one is a good one. So Tito Refuto, that's got to be it. Did you use the LOJ swap kit? I'd love to do the same swap to my 350Z. So I actually did not, just to straight up answer that and get that over with. I don't know what the other name of the other kit that's on the market for an RB 350Z swap, but I did not use that one as well. At the time, whenever I did this swap, let's keep in mind this was 5 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago now, and nobody made any parts for this swap, like zero. I take that back actually. Wiring Specialties was the only company that made a part for this direct swap, and that was an engine harness. So I had to not only fabricate all my own motor mounts, but figure out where the engine could sit in the engine bay, and how high up, what transmission I'm going to use, and all this nonsense. Along with the RBs are actually kind of angled a little bit whenever they're sitting in the engine bay. Anyways, this was a whole ordeal. All the slots were custom made, or all the mounts were custom made. And I still use the factory oil pan, which is kind of a problem because it's front sump. And for anyone that knows an RB, they have oil problems. You really want them to be a rear sump. You really want to put a head drain on them. And I didn't do either of those, which is why I suffered the consequence of losing the ring lands at Polecat, not having a proper tune on the car. I never dynoed it, a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the time, this is my first swap. So the engine mounts that I made were okay. They worked. Not quite where the engine needs to sit because the motor is just a tad bit heavier than the actual VQ. I think it's like 80 pounds or something like that. 50 to 80 pounds. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but compared to the RB with, all the accessories on it with the intake, turbo, manifolds, like all that stuff, you're almost the same weight as the VQ. And yes, that's good to have it up front, but you got to compensate the fact that the RB is almost twice as long as the VQ. So it's putting a lot more weight over the front end, which doesn't make the car drive very happy. I'm sure like a lot of people would just get over it and it would be totally fine. But I'm kind of chasing more of that in style feel out of a car that doesn't kind of give an in style feel. And having the engine so far forward over the front rack made it way too complicated. And it made the car feel too weird and really twitchy, and like the front end, like I was always driving around the front end almost. So I really think that this swap specifically needs to go back in the engine bay more. So it's ironic because like the RB motor mounts that are on it, because I have the factory ones that come off the block and then they have that little pivot platform. If I raise the motor up a little bit and go back about 4 or 5 inches, those mounts might actually line up perfectly with the holes on the subframe. And I could just possibly put two 350Z motor mounts in there and call it a day. I'd likely go to, solid motor mounts, probably something like Z1 or IRS or whatever, that are just for a VQ. Probably the IRS because they have that little pivoting point and it could make it easier for the RB's factory mounts coming off to actually line up better. I'm not too sure. We just got to play with it and see, but the motor needs to go back quite a bit further in the engine bay, cut the false firewall out, which I should have done that anyways, just to make for more room in the engine bay, and just kind of revitalize the swap and make it more functional for that chassis. And then hopefully we can actually sell the motor mount kit and anything else that could possibly go with that too. I already have some ideas on manufacturing and stuff for that too. So we'll find out if that ends up happening. So you can actually get a proper kit for it, because I think the LOJ kit is, although it is a proper like fabricated kit, it does kind of put the engine in the exact same place that mine is in, just a little bit higher. So is it really worth it? I don't think so. And I think that we could do it way better. I'm actually playing with experience with the actual swap and driving it specifically for drifting. So I think that's kind of the people that are really going to be wanting it are drifters. And now that we're going to be seeing a lot more RBs into the States, I think with a lot of these cars becoming legal in the States, with how old they're getting, we're probably going to see a lot more RBs. So I think more groundbreaking parts stateside would be very nice to have. And I know a lot of people are tired of the trumpet sounds too. So why not go with the best sounding motor on the planet? Fucking duh. Anyways, but that's just me just blabbing on that one. Definitely, if you want to go LOJ kit, like by all means do it. I just have no experience with it, and yeah, hopefully it works. I'd be curious to see if it does. So, or how it feels to you if you end up going that way. So, yeah, give me feedback if you end up doing it. But let's move on to the next one. Photography. What do you want to see in the future of grassroots and competitive drifting as a whole? So I feel like answering that requires two different answers, because you really can't. It's almost like grassroots and competition are just two different sides of drifting. Like you got to completely split them down the middle. There's no one with like mixing the other, or I mean, I guess you do technically, but I think people that are more competitive driven have a more competitive car specifically for competition, but even if they have a seat time car, it's going to be more relative to their pro car. Not really a grassroots car, because it's not really affordable. Like that's just like financially doesn't make sense. So, which then again, like everything we're doing in drifting doesn't financially make sense. So, I would say in grassroots drifting, we'll start there. I think there needs to be less events that are I want everyone to be able to come and I want everyone to be able to drive because I feel like there's too many of those that it floods the amount of events that are happening and like you end up in this awkward spot of drivers being like, "Oh, my tires didn't come in time for this weekend. I'll just go to the event that's happening down the road next weekend." And it's really screwing over a lot of event hosts, which is kind of inherently their own problem too. So like I think that events need to be more standardized. I think there needs to be more requirements to events, especially depending on like the type of track you're at, how well maintained the facility is, if it's just, your average weird skid pad parking lot event that's, in the middle of nowhere, then that should probably be one of those events where just anyone can come drive. I'm not talking about those. Like whenever you start getting into road course stuff or even say something like I know OSW is just a skid pad, but there's also an actual racetrack there as well. And again, that's just an example of a track. I think there needs to be more requirements. So, like, as shitty as this sounds, like, car needs to be of such a standard of looks wise, and the way that your driving skill is needs to be of a certain standard, and you know, um, so many, even down to like so many years experience in drifting. Cause like you get into grid lives and stuff like that, where it is supposed to be a show. I know you want to get seat time and like that's cool, but that's not really what grid life is. A grid life is to put on a show, and a grid life is to have fun and let the spectators have a weekend of their lifetime experiencing concert festivals and race cars all in the same space. So, if you're having new people coming to events like that have no idea what drifting or race cars really are about, and they see your pile of shit that has, most of its body panels missing and it's not one color, and, you can tell that you physically just don't give a shit about your own car. I think we need to hold grassroots drivers to a higher standard, almost like Drift Indy does, and a lot of events like that. That's just an oval track, yet you damn sure better not show up with your car dirty as hell. So that's just me on the grassroots side of things. I think there needs to be more standard. As far as competition, I think, hmm, I think we focus too much on making it fun for the spectators. I know that is very important, but I feel capturing, what, I take that back. In competition drifting, the the one thing that I wish was more common is that pro-ams set you up better for FD. Obviously, it is setting you up on the driving side fine. Like you're getting the competition feel, you're learning the structure of a, competition schedule and like all that stuff. You're running a, keeping a pro car alive, pro car in a sense, and I guess even just being on live stream, most pro, yeah, I think all maybe not all, but most Pro-Am series have a live stream involved with it, so you kind of get that feel. It's not nearly to the extent because you're not having people come shove a microphone and camera in your face in the pits asking you what just happened and so on and so forth. But the one thing Pro-Am doesn't the one thing Pro-Am doesn't kind of train you for is the program side. The actual, marketing side of it, selling yourself to companies and making brand deals and doing the whole, driving across country in a big rig or having someone else have to do it. So now you have to hire them and you got to work extra hours that you can so you can make the money for that and get even down to being on camera. Like you're gonna have to be on camera a fucking lot. I know you've hidden from it for so long, but I mean that's just a part of FD and I think I know there's a budget aspect to Pro-Am that is missing to cover that and make that happen. But as far as stuff that I would want to see change next, it would probably be that. I think a lot of drivers come into FD without the proper expectations and preparation, and it really shoots them in the foot more than anything. Well, it ends up making them shoot themselves in the foot more than anything because then they get to FD and their skill level isn't to a standard and their program isn't to a standard, so they're not going to be able to get any sponsorships. And people still seem to think that you can go all throughout Pro-Am without doing social media, without getting sponsors, and without all this stuff. And they genuinely think this. Once you get to FD, the sponsors just start flooding in, and that's just inherently not true at all. You would have to be doing something of extraordinary proportions besides FD or any type of competitive driving that would make companies want to be knocking on your door as you come into the professional level. Companies just aren't going to do that. I mean, you can see it with Cody Buchanan right now. I mean, he said it on his podcast. He's said it multiple times after the fact of just because he won Prospect. He won all of Prospect last year doesn't mean any sponsors are knocking on his door. And that's at the prospect level, going from prospect to pro. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on what should happen with competition. But we can move on from that one. That one got me kind of on a rant. Y'all got me hot now. Of course, my buddy Austin Palomini. Dude, I hope I say your name right. Your name is difficult. He's the media guy for Grip Royal. But he said he was just kind of roasting me. Why would you even try that stupid ass engine swap? Must be gay or something. I guess you could say that. He's a good dude. You should check out his Miata that he kind of, I think he just finished it like last year or something. Really good car, really clean, and of course he's good with cameras too, so he makes it look even better. But let's move on from that. Freedomfries.tv, he fried me up too. Is it gonna last? Is it oh, is it going to last an event? In parentheses, please. And are you going to DI event in Nashville this year? So if you don't DI Drift Indy, I'm going to try to. Last year, I really wanted to go to No Star Bash, and I really, really wanted to make it to a Drift Appalachia event, but I just couldn't make them work. They interfered with two events that I had already had planned to go to, and I just couldn't. I couldn't make it work. So, given that this is so close, I'm gonna do everything that I can to go because I love the guys at Drift Indy. I think they host some of the best events, for sure on the East Coast, but in all of the country, like just straight up. They host some of the best events. They're some of the best dudes. They have some of the best drivers in the country. And the boys get down out there. I haven't been able to go in a couple years, but last time I was there for No Star Bash, that shit was a blast. So even if I don't have a car, I'm gonna try and come. I want to try and get some interviews with the boys because I don't ever get to go up to Ohio area and do that very often. So yeah, I'm gonna do my best. We'll see what happens, but count on me trying to be there. And then let's move on to Stoop. I assume. Oh, Stroop. Stroop underscore performance. Ooh, fuck. I hope I didn't butcher that. What's the plan for event coverage this year? Grid Life, FD, Hollyfest, blah blah blah. So as of this year, so last year we did a lot. We did way more than we fucking should have probably. No, I take that back. I take that back. I don't regret all the events that we did. But it was very eye opening as to what events work, what events don't, what events get more podcasts, what events sell more merch, or blah, blah, blah. And it's was totally flopped from what I thought it was. I thought Grid Life was going to be my holy grail. I was going to sell so much stuff and I was going to get so many podcasts because there's so many different people from so many different walks of life and racing and blah, blah, blah. And it just totally wasn't that. Now, I'm not saying Grid Life was awful or anything. Grid Lives are some of the best events that you can probably experience. And that wasn't the reasoning. It was just so let me back up. Whenever you get into the position of building a business within motorsports, yes, but more specifically drifting, you really have to budget correctly. You really got to plan out these events. They don't just become show up with a bunch of tires, pay your entry, we go jam with the boys, party afterwards, and we're good. That yeah, some of that stuff happens, but there's so much extra stuff that goes into it, and there's so much just nonsense that goes wrong on top of it. So, for example, um, whenever I'm going to a grid life, I'm going to answer the question, by the way. This is just so that we have context as to why I'm choosing to go the route that I am this year. Grid life, for example, you go to Grid Life, you set up, you're there all weekend, so it's like it ends up being a 4-day ordeal to really do it properly, and especially on the lower scale team, like just usually me and my girlfriend. Every once in a while, we have a helper, which is usually Wyatt tipped in, but like you don't always have that, so. It's just me and her, and we're struggling with, we have to stay at the booth. We can't just leave. We can't just go um, out shooting content and talking with people, scheduling podcasts and all that stuff because we have to watch over everything that's at the booth. We can't just leave it unattended. So we end up stuck there the entire event, and we can't go do anything until it's time to close down. We close the booth and we go wander off and enjoy what little of the actual events we can get, which is usually like a couple runs at the end of an FD, and that's about it. Most grid lives, you're just done and tired at the end of it. So with grid lives, though, it's very funny because you have all this whole window of just freedom to do whatever. Like even the track time is like very scheduled out, and you got a lot of time in between each go groups, and so there's a lot of freedom to just go do what you want. But on top of that, there's a lot to do at a grid life as well. So you end up in this weird scenario of, yes, there are so many people to do a podcast with, but they all go on track at the same time. When they're not on track, other race groups are on track, whether that be Time Attack or Wheel to Wheel, Rush Cars, blah, blah, blah. So there's also a lot of noise going on at grid lives at literally all hours of the day. So you have to keep that into consideration, which means the booth has to be set up in a certain way. I have to be facing the track so that the microphones will be faced away from the track and less likely to pick up all of that background noise if it was behind us. So I have to watch out for that on what cars are out on track at certain times. And then I have to watch out for the times where people just come to the vendor area, or they just come to booths to shop for merch, and like that stuff just happens. So usually whenever drifters come off track, there's a whole hour window of people just shopping around. And so I don't really want to shoot a podcast during that time when I need to attend to you guys that are out and you want to come meet, or you want to come have a conversation or just whatever. So I have to find the right windows, but even in those right windows for me doesn't mean it's the right window for the people that I'm going to be interviewing as well. So I have to work around that, which in turn, I end up leaving, long story short, I end up leaving a grid life with, I think at most I left with 3 podcasts or 4 podcasts in a weekend. On average, it's about 2, which I'm sure a lot of you can tell, or not. I'm not tell, but like I'm sure a lot of you could guess that only doing 2 podcasts after spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to be at this event, I'm not. The money's not being made back going to so many grid lives. So, along with the smaller scale events, that's something else that needs to kind of. I know I get a lot of invitations, and I'm so greatly appreciated to every last event host out there that invites me, or just whether it's a spectator or a driver, inviting me to come out and come to their event. I would love to. And if I had all the money in the world, I would 100% come to every single one of those events that I could. But it's just not possible. It's physically not possible. I have to consider the value of the event that it brings to the podcast, and that's just the situation you're stuck in order to keep things going. The podcast doesn't make a lot of money, so yes, it may look like I'm doing a lot, and I'm at a lot of these places, and like, but I'm sacrificing so freaking much just to make these episodes happen. That is also a reason why I took a couple weeks off too. Like, just to be blunt, like, I doing all of this has put a lot of weight on me and made me very stressed and irritable at times, and take it out on people, and it's really making me the person I don't want to be. And I need to find ways to make that a little more efficient. So, as much as I would love to go to every grid life and do all of those, I'm probably only going to hit 1 or 2 this year. Maybe, I don't know. I already had to, I'm probably going to have to cut ice drifting out for this year. I just got so much shit going on right now, on top of while I was trying to take a break, which wasn't helpful. Like, this is off season, and like where everything's prepping for next year. It's just a busy time, but like I mentally could not take anymore. So on the flip side of that, um, surprisingly, if we want to talk about making money back and being in any way profitable from an event, I would have to say TogeCon, that Sasha Rayevsky from Yankee Special puts on out in Arkansas. Beautiful. Holy shit, this place is beautiful. Like, middle of nowhere fucking Arkansas. You wouldn't expect it to be some, scenic, amazing place. Dude, the mountains up there, holy shit. I didn't know Arkansas was so beautiful. That's besides the fact. TogeCon isn't even a drift event, which is crazy. It's just a show car event. It's a stance meet, essentially. Like, just to put it blunt, like, it's a stance meet. It's show cars, and but it's so cool because it's right in the middle of their little downtown thing, and they have it all inside the convention center. So all the vendors are set up in a booth, and they got a parking lot outside that does the show cars, and it was so cool the way this event was. And on top of that, I hadn't been to like a show car type event in so long, so it was unique to experience that as well, as being on the flip side of it, being a vendor. And dude, it's not that I even sold a bunch of merch. Like, I didn't even sell a bunch of merch there. Some people bought merch because like they were either fans of the podcast or whatever. But dude, I brought the sim out there, the Sim Magic rig from Sim HQ, and holy crap, People love the sim at those events. I mean, I don't think there was a single moment that entire time we were there. As soon as the doors open, we were the first vendor booth as you walked in the door. So no matter which door you came in, we had a door on the right side and a door on the left side, and we were the first booth. So no, I'm sorry, that door on the right side was blocked off. Um, so people were all coming in this left door. They pass right by the booth. The first thing they see is literally the sim rig because it's right there to the right, and people are saying, "Oh, can I try it? How can I try it?" And I think we did like, what was it, $10 for 5 minutes or something like that on the sim, and I mean, there was not a second, like not a single second all day that someone wasn't on the sim, and that event made up for like the past 3 events that I had lost money at, just to be truthful. And it's very eye-opening for one, and shows you kind of the pattern that a lot of us go through to get to drifting. And once we're here, I don't think we realize how high on a pedestal drifting actually is. Because that's where I started, was the stance cars, and I had a stance car myself, and eventually sold all the stuff of that to buy the Z that I had, and anyways, the rest was history. But that event did phenomenal, and I think I will forever make that event a priority. Um, Whether like we still continue on with Sim HQ or like however things work out, I think having a sim at the booth is a phenomenal value aspect to the booth itself and branding. And for one, the most obviously, I would say the most important one, getting people a taste of drifting so that they can get into it. I like that's literally entirely what this show is about. Is I want more people to learn about drifting and try it. I want more people in drifting. It's the best sport on the planet. Why not? Like you see videos all the time of people like like imagine choosing golf as your hobby, knowing drifting exists. Like I'm sure some of you golf out there, but I'm sorry, fuck golf. Are you kidding me? What the fuck, dude? People have such a misconception of what drifting is, especially because of Takeover Crowd. And anyways, let's not go down that rabbit hole because I could be there all night. I fucking hate Takeover kids. So, and on top of that, as far as events going good, FD did phenomenal all around, especially for podcasts. If I can get more podcasts out of an event, I'll lose all the money that weekend. Don't care. Don't care at all. It brings you guys more episodes. It brings more people to drifting. I know having a single episode can do more than me selling a t-shirt. Plain and simple. So FD provides that, and whether that be FD drivers or pit crew or media people at FD or Ryan Sage himself or whoever, I think it does the best for the podcast. It provides the best value all around for not just me but you guys. So that's the primary focus for the year. Is I know that was a very roundabout way and a long way of answering your question. I'm so sorry, but FD is the primary focus this year. We are going to do every single round as many grid lives as I can. I love that FD is making some changes this year, and I think I would be very dumb if I didn't try and make FD the priority when it's going to have a lot of focus from the community this year. And on top of that, I am setting some goals for myself as well where I've got to get out of the country. I finally got my passport last year. I've never been out of the country my entire life. And this is the year I'm going to do that one way or another. Whether that be Japan, whether that be Europe, whether that be Australia, whether that be New Zealand or wherever. I'd be curious to see where you guys want me to go because no matter where I go, I'm going to be doing interviews and I'm going to be doing podcasts with people that you guys suggest or people that I find interesting myself, of course. But I'd really love to hear what you guys think because as of right now, I think I want to prioritize Japan and Europe. Yeah. I think that's as far as the hints I want to give to the ones I'm picking. Um, but let me know what you guys think, and we'll see what all we can do this year. I don't know how much. I'm still in the middle of finalizing a bunch of stuff for the year as far as sponsorships and so on and so forth. So we'll see what all happens. But yeah, FD's focus, and then we're gonna kind of roll from there. I've got a couple oddball events that I'll throw on the schedule, but keep an eye out for that. I am going to try and post an actual made schedule this year just so you guys can keep up with that and that way you guys can come out and plan for that if you do want to come see the podcast happen live or maybe you just want to come say hi or buy some merch in person at a discount. So, yeah, we'll move on from that question because I know that was extremely long-winded. So, where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Um, Grayson, yeah, Grayson McBride asked if you had to do competition, what chassis would you pick? Um, my obvious first answer is S chassis. I just after driving them in the sim so much, I really love the way they feel, especially with an inline type motor, lightweight up front, all that stuff. That would be my ideal. Like what I personally want. Would I suggest that? Probably not because it's just not as marketable anymore. You see a lot of people with the BRZ chassis, or more now the GR86 chassis, which I think is going to be a little more superior than the GT86 chassis. Uh, but the Supra is also a good contender, and I would say a lot of like F80s and a lot of the BMW stuff too, of course. But the one that I would personally choose, hmm, I'm gonna go since you didn't specify. I'm gonna go with it doesn't matter the budget. And like it's just a normal FD budget, normal pro FD budget. I would love to do a GR86. Out of the box, they're not great cars, but with the right parts, I almost feel they could be the next S chassis because like the S chassis is the same thing. Out of the box, they're pretty god awful, but as soon as you start throwing some parts at them, they turn pretty fucking good. If you throw the right parts at them, they turn fucking great. So I would say GR86 more specifically. I'm not the biggest fan of the way the GT86 looks. That may be an unpopular opinion. Actually, that definitely is an unpopular opinion, but I just don't. I don't like it. I don't like the way they look. I think the rear looks too invisible. It's not there. There is no rear. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but definitely GR86. Um, and then let's see, Jake Collier. If you weren't on the podcasting side of drifting, what would you be doing? Okay, so if I wasn't on the podcasting side of drifting, that's an interesting question. And I've thought a lot about this one because I didn't I didn't fully intend for this to happen. Um, I'm not sure if most of you even know or have seen any of the related channels. Like if you go to a YouTube channel and you scroll down, if the creator has it turned on and added any channels to it, there's a whole section that says other channels that are related to this channel. And the best example of like being able to look that up is probably Mr. Beast. You can see all the different channels that he has. But I just have one other one, and it's my personal channel that I never post on anymore. For some reason, it still gets comments and stuff to this day randomly and like likes and stuff on videos that I've posted. But I used to do like just your normal vlog type stuff. It wasn't very great. It was not great at all. It was awful. But I wanted to make content. I wanted to just shoot videos and I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to be just your average 9 to 5 Joe Schmo bullshit. I wanted some fucking substance to my life, and I loved podcasts at the time, and it was just like I this was an opening I saw, I guess you could call it, but I knew there wasn't the podcast in drift. You know, every niche has like their person. So like for drifting, a lot of people, especially in the younger generation, are gonna say, Adam LZ. As soon as they hear about drifting, Adam LZ, or they're gonna think James Dean, or they're gonna think Vaughn Gittin Jr., or whoever you want to name. So I saw that there wasn't a designated podcast for drifting. What is going on? Anyways, I don't know why this keeps happening. Keep getting a disk error or something on the hard drive, but all the footage keeps showing up, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll just keep chugging along. I don't know. We may have to cut this episode a little short. Maybe not go into all of the extra stuff that I want to go into, just in case. We've already gone on pretty long, so we'll finish all of these questions and stuff, but I think a lot of the extra stuff that I was going to get into, we'll probably just save that maybe for the next solo episode, and then you guys can add on to that with extra questions that you have. Just to go off of that, I ended up kind of being this, like an accidental reporter in a sense. Like I just wanted to have conversations with people. I was very bad at having conversations. I was very socially awkward, and I really believe that in order to I don't think every fear can be conquered just by doing such a thing, but I think majority of fears that are on that lower level of, just speaking to another human is very achievable to get over by just practicing. So if you suck at talking to people, you force yourself to be in situations where you have to talk to people a lot. And as much as this was a like a platform to get people into drifting, it was a platform to help bring out a part of me that I needed in not just in my own personal life, but in my professional life as well. I need to be able to speak to people. I need to be able to have the confidence in what I say and everything that I essentially do. Yeah, I ended up being this accidental podcaster, accidental reporter type of person, and like I'm not mad about it. There are some faults that come to it, and some very dark sides to it as well, where you're almost looked at, it feels like, as the bad guy all the time, and you have to like it's almost like people don't comprehend the fact that it's an interview. Like, I'm asking questions on behalf of the people, not because I'm ignorant about whatever I'm asking. As far as what I would do on the other side of this, in drifting, obviously I'm gonna say driver. I would love to just be a driver, and that solely be it. But I think you guys are looking for something a little more specific, and I would probably not have anything to do with content. If I was to completely revert and choose something on the opposite side of drifting or outside of this world of drifting, it would be not necessarily body work, but paint work. I really enjoy the paint process whenever it comes to painting cars. I've done my Z twice now, and will be doing the G as well. And there's something so rewarding about laying paint down and clear, and I would really love to master that and doing real candy paint jobs and, fade painting and all sorts of stuff. I would love to be deeper on that side if I wasn't so involved on this side. That would be my answer probably. So I think that was the last one of the Instagram ones that we're going to go through today. Yeah, we'll just stop there. As far as questions I got from Jay, though, we can run through some of those because those were pretty interesting. These are, I'm going to have to run through fast, though, especially because I have no freaking clue what's going on here. So, first question we got from Jay is, I would ask, who is on your list of people you'd want to interview? That's going to be interesting. I know most of you are probably expecting me to say someone like Adam LZ or something like that. And although, like, of course, yeah, I would love to interview him. I have actually had the opportunity to interview him before by a company that reached out to do it and to help set it up and stuff. But it would almost be like a commercialized version of a podcast, is what I was visualizing based off of what they were telling me. And for one, I don't want the first time I interview Adam to be based off of branding or any type of sponsorship or have any product placement or anything like that. I would want that to purely be a conversation that I could have with him and just solely me and him. There are some variables to that, to why I don't think that would ever physically be possible. Even on the lower scale of people in the industry, everyone looks out for themselves. So everyone looks out for certain things they say on the podcast. There's been plenty of episodes where I've had to cut specific little sentences out just because the guest was weird about it. Now, would I not ever do it? No, I would obviously do an episode with him. I would just love it to be more on my own terms. And if that's ever possible, I don't know. Maybe it will one day, but I won't do it any other way. And especially the way this one was going to be set up was for an alcohol company, and I personally don't agree with that. Yes, I do drink alcohol sometimes. I'm by far not much. I mean, I'm talking like if I go out to eat, maybe once or twice a month, I'll get a beer or something while I'm there. That's about the extent of drinking that I really do. Maybe a little bit heavier at PRI, SEMA, where you're trying to mingle and, loosen up the blood flow a little bit of just being able to talk to people. So, um, I would never promote alcohol to you guys. I don't agree with it, and that's just not something for my own personal reasons I would ever do. So, I think that answered the question. No, that didn't at all. So, as far as people I would want to interview, though, I would say Simba from Final Bout would be one of them. Chair Slayer. His story just interests the fuck out of me. Very interesting story. Um, Yeah, obviously, like T-Pain, he's pretty close, and he's a celebrity, so duh, of course. But one other big one is Hurt. I've looked up to Hurt a lot as far as like his car builds and like the way that he has been on social media, a lot of his marketing brain, and just I've looked up to him for quite a while. So I would love to be able to sit down and do an interview with him, along with a lot of like the animal style guys. I think they're very interesting people, and really all of the Final Bout drivers. Like I would love to go set up a booth at Final Bout, talk to some of them. So that'd probably be my answers. Probably a little far off from what you guys would have expected. Maybe, I don't know, but that's pretty much it. There's plenty more other people too. Just to make it quick. So next one is what's the most important or the most interesting thing you've learned since starting the show? I feel like that's two different answers. So most important, I would say when it comes to sharing your life online and realistically just doing anything social media wise to a larger scale, it's not what all it's made out to be. Um, it's important that people know that a lot of the people that you look up to on a daily basis that do content and are within the industry are nowhere near as successful, for one, as you think they are, nor as important as you think they are. And probably not the person you think they are too, which is very sad to say. The whole never meet your heroes thing, like, although I don't agree with that specifically, it is very true. Like, your heroes are not always what you picture them in your head, and you just expect certain characteristics. So I would think that's very important that I've learned. But that's kind of on the content side of things and like really diving into the industry with a business and stuff like that. Um, as far as interesting, no, I guess that's probably the same answer. Yeah, that'd probably be the same answer because most that's it's very interesting to me how whenever you pull back the curtain on someone who whenever you pull back the curtain on who someone really is, at least just a little bit, it really breaks down that image and the respect that you kind of had for them when they don't uphold the image you have for them. So, yeah, that was probably the most interesting thing that I've learned while doing all of this stuff. That and that merch doesn't sell like you think it does. That's the topic for a different day. What was a highlight moment of the previous year? Hmm. It's not that it's a good moment, but it taught me a lot. The Formula Drift Orlando was a very brutal event for me. We were obviously at the time like I'm not making much money doing this and really no money doing the event stuff. And I was fairly, this was like the second or third event of doing podcasts at events. And we had the whole booth set up, and of course it's Florida, so it's gonna rain all the fucking time, and it got really windy right where we were, and we had no trailers around us covering any of the wind and stuff, and I didn't have proper weights on the canopy and all sorts of stuff. So overnight, our canopies ended up blown away, ripping holes in them, and actually destroyed one of the frames. And it caused this whole ordeal, costing me a good amount of money to fix all of that stuff and, patch the holes and get a new frame for the canopy and all that other stuff. So, on top of that, I ended up closing down for the second day just because I didn't really trust the canopy for one. So, like, I didn't want to risk the canopy like collapsing in any way. Like we get a big gush of wind and the canopy just like collapses on some spectators that are there looking at merch, or like they wanted to come test out the Viper chair or what. Dude, all sorts of scenarios were going through my head on top of just being pissed off and upset and just, disappointed and all sorts of emotions. So I learned a lot from that experience and being able to just, step back up, say, fuck it, let's just get back into it, let's do it. Let's, closing down, I don't think was the best decision for that day, but at the time I felt that's what I needed. So I don't regret it in any way. I would just probably do it different moving forward. And yeah, although that isn't a good experience, I would say that is probably the highlight of the year. Dude, there's something about my brain that just doesn't stop, and like what I focus on so much is just growth and like doing better and mm, building the business, and I can't get my head unwrapped from it. So it's hard for me to enjoy and live in the moment when very special things are happening, which is one main thing that I really regret from mainly the past year, because I achieved so many goals and so many things last year that like I would have given everything in my life for just 5 years ago to be in those positions, and like I just brushed right past them like they didn't matter. Uh, that sucks. I don't like that. So that's something I'm going to work on so that I could actually even have a proper answer to that question. It's just hard. It's hard, especially in the growth stage of just work, 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 work. You got to keep grinding, got to keep grinding, got to keep grinding. I don't know. So that hopefully that answers that question, but we'll move on from that. Um, being that you have been sponsored, if you had to sponsor someone, who would it be, or what would that relationship look like? Who would it be would obviously be something that relates to the brand. I mean, there's obviously Circle Drift, which is very broad as far as the driver range, but there's Grassroots Hero, which is really like the base of all of this. And Grassroots Hero means a lot to me. I mean, I I feel with the questions and platform that I have, I embody the grassroots drifter more than most social media platforms. With what I do with my own cars, with what I do with this for a living, so on and so forth. So it would have to be someone that is rooted in grassroots, and I'm like more pure grassroots, not like new age US grassroots that's just a hack job of a car and blah blah blah. Like I want you to give a fuck, even though you don't have all the money in the world. You still give a fuck about your car, and you still do every damn thing possible to make sure it looks good every time it shows up the track. I would really look for someone that carries himself in a proper way, shows that they actually want to put off a good image, and they do more than just drive. I don't think drifting is just, obviously drifting is about driving, but I think there's more to drifting than just driving. There's a reason our industry is as humble as we are, is as nice as we are, as helpful as we are. So yeah, I would look for someone like that. As far as like what it would look like, I have no fucking clue. Like I don't make enough money. I don't make nearly enough money to be even thinking about the fact of sponsoring someone. That would just be hilarious. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but definitely someone that carries himself well as a driver and outside of the driver's seat too, which I think is what most companies would look for. Um, now, what is your bucket list track? Now, what is your bucket list track? Wait, what is your bucket list for tracks you haven't driven? Wheels old or new. I don't know what the wheels old or new part means, but 100% Mahon and North Course at Ebisu. I drive those tracks a lot. They're kind of like my go-to tracks on the sim, so I would absolutely love to experience those in person, which is why I was talking about Japan being one of my suggestions of going out of country this year and doing podcasts and stuff too. So I would love to just experience it, whether I get to drive this time or whatever. I I'll get over it. I'd love to drive, of course, but it's just so expensive now. So um, we'll see. But yeah, definitely tracks in Japan. I think uh, they call for a different style or a more original style of drifting, and I love that. Now, last question is, what's something you want to see more in drifting? Hmm. I think that goes back to the event thing. We're so spoiled with the amount of events. I think we need to start holding drifting to a higher standard. And I think that we need to hold or I guess the way to do that is by holding our drivers more accountable and to a higher standard as well. So that would be my suggestion on that. I know that one was pretty short, but yeah, I mean, that's all the questions as far as we got from you guys and Jay, but or at least the ones I chose to answer. Now, I know the main thing you guys are probably curious about and want to know the answer to, which is a piece of content that is obviously no longer available on the channel or on Spotify or any other platform. And that is for a reason. Um, I got to be careful with specifically what I say because there is some stuff that happened behind the scenes that dictated this outcome. And although I don't personally agree with it, my show is not to insult anyone. My show is not to make anyone look bad or anything along those lines. That's never the intent of the show. The show is to bring more people into drifting and show people who we are as drifters. And this specific episode, uh, not the entire episode, but specific parts of the episode upset certain people. And I found in the end it was of best interest for not only them, but myself, for the circumstances I was given, to just pull the episode for now, figure out what's going on, and we can come to a conclusion later on what happens with this specific episode. I don't think the message that was actually in the episode correlated to what they were worried about. And on top of that, this specific episode was by far not just my favorite episode I've ever done, but probably the best example of my work as a podcaster to this date. And I had to get rid of it like that. I don't know. It really pissed me off. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll ever be able to put that episode back out. I do think it reached majority of people that it needed to, or really cared about the situation. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say on that. But what I will say is that I'm sorry if it upset you that some of the episodes weren't out on time, or they were out, a day, 2 days late, or it didn't have the specific questions you wanted, or whatever the reason is. That wasn't my intention. There's a lot that goes into these podcasts that nobody gets to see, nor does like it really matter to any of you guys. And you never get to see the planning. You never get to see all of it. One of the biggest realizations I've had this year is that all of you, specifically you, I'm looking at you, have supported and helped the podcast and me inherently more than any single person that I used to spend all of my time supporting, or any friend, or even the guests. Like, you guys show more support for the podcast than majority of guests. There's been several guests that I've had on that after the fact I felt used, like they used my platform to put out a specific message that they wanted. Or it was the fact of like they use it as the publicity to just get on a different platform, and they absolutely refuse to do any helpful promotion, like even just putting a story post out there or collaborating with the reels. A lot of you guys complain to me about that, about why I don't tag people in reels, and that's just blatantly not fucking true. I tag every single person that's talking in the reel is tagged in the reel. But if you don't see a collab on a reel with a guest, it's because that guest chose not to collab. I mean, this year I'm going to be highly picky on who I have on the podcast. I don't know. You guys really pick and choose who you're supporting, because not everyone out there is there for the right reasons and making content for the right reasons and all that stuff. So I think I am going to leave you guys on that note, and we will reconvene for another solo episode in the future. I'll leave it up to you guys on how frequently you want that to happen, because I know if you're still listening right now, you are actually a true supporter of this show, and you actually mean the fucking world to me. Let me just say that now. So I encourage all of the criticism. I encourage all of you to give your opinion on what you thought about this show, if I should even continue. Like I said, how frequently you want it, what topics you want me to cover, stuff like that. And we'll possibly make this a reoccurring thing, and maybe just a bonus episode every month or whatever. I don't know. So I genuinely cannot thank you guys enough for staying so patient with me, especially these past couple of weeks while I kind of reconvene with myself and just find that passion again that I needed. And yeah, you guys mean everything to me. This show means everything to me, and I cannot wait for this year. I've got so many things that I want to achieve, and I feel we're on the right path. We can build something phenomenal, and already I'm starting to see some signs of it. So, uh, yeah. And I did want to give some updates too before we close out. We will be actually selling tires from Zeknova directly on the website from now on. I am actually a dealer of Zeknova, so we will be able to just sell them directly to you from Circle of Drift. It really helps support the podcast. There's not a lot of margin on that. We're not going to make a ton off of it, but it will help bring some extra income to help keep the lights on, keep us at events, so on and so forth. So, along with some other companies and stuff that will be coming on board as far as me being a dealer. So, keep an eye out for that. I really just want to curate the best list of parts and companies that I believe in to just put all in one place for you guys to be able to access. Um, May not be for everyone, may not be for every car. That's totally fine. I'm just going off my personal picks on what I think, what I would be proud in selling. So, or even providing to you guys. Anyways, I'm just blabbing at this point. I don't do this often, but if would greatly appreciate if you do look below the video and if you see that subscribe button isn't clicked, go ahead and click that along with the bell notification. And if you actually enjoyed this episode, hitting the thumbs up is probably the best way for me to know if you actually enjoyed the show. So do that if you can. It really helps support. And I guess I will see you on the next scheduled episode next week. Peace. Man, I really hope you guys enjoyed that first solo episode. Again, it's the first time we've ever done it, so I'm sorry if it was a little off in some areas or if I just started rambling in too many areas or whatever. If I got a little sappy there too much at the end, I do apologize for that. This is not as easy as it looks, and all I can say is to every single one of you that has supported, again, you guys are the best. None of this is possible without you. None of this is possible without the companies that support the show. And I thank you so much, especially for bearing with some like ads and like all sorts of things. You guys are awesome. And I can't wait for next week and the weeks coming up because we've got some special ones in the books and some that we're trying to plan out moving forward. So keep an eye out. Make sure the subscribe button's pressed if it's not already. I think the last time I checked, it was almost 70% of you guys that watch on a regular basis were not subscribed. So it'd be greatly appreciated. But as always, I will see you guys in the next one.